afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Long Hill Report, and we are fortunate enough to have as our guest Gus Steeves.
Hello, all.
Writes for the Southbridge Evening News, and the
Yep.
Stonebridge Press,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the town councilor
Yep.
in the town of Southbridge.
And temporarily acting as pirate today.
And temporarily acting as pirate. And we do the Long Hill Report, we do eye exams. How many fingers am I holding up? Close enough. Anyway,
Depends which eye I'm looking at. I can't say anything this one.
we are glad to have him to discuss the issues of the day. It's January of 2022.
Yep.
And
I'm glad to see 2021 behind us.
It
was a little crazy.
We are in the we are having some new variants. We have the Omicron variant, and we have this new what's the new Florona or something like that.
I saw something about that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I am predicting on the Long Report the Upsilon variant. When you get that, you will actually be stronger than you were before you had COVID. You'll be actually able to...
At the rate we're going, it might be.
Olympic events, and you will be even intellectually sharper.
Either that or to turn you Spider-Man or the Hulk.
There you go.
Of course, not having control over that might be a problem.
So, but we'll take our time waiting about that. So... do you have any predictions about 2022?
At the moment, no. But I'm just going to watch things and see where things go. And hopefully, maybe I do have one. I suspect that this year's a midterm election year. And at the way things are going, the Democrats are probably going to get creamed. Well, but that's probably a safe prediction, given the stuff that's been going on. So the midtermers usually... the people the party in power usually ends up losing the midterms. So,
well, the thing about another reason why, whether it's fair to blame, and I think it's fair to blame any politician, anytime, any place.
Yeah.
But whether it is fair to blame the Biden regime or not, when you get into power, you own it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So people don't feel great about the economy.
No.
I was just talking prior discussion with a fellow who does economics and doesn't predict the economy, but says what it is. And it's not as bad as it might look, but it doesn't feel good.
But how much of that, to be honest with you, and I don't know, it'd be nice if you were here to answer this question actually, but how much of that is because of the way they doctor the economic statistics, though? I mean, because there's still an issue with the feds have a tendency to take things like, for example, the jobless rates, and they periodically change how they calculate them. So the number of people who are out of work but not looking are not considered jobless. They're not considered unemployed. They just disappear.
Back in the Stone Age, when I first took an economics course, and I said, "What? If they're not actively looking for a job, they're not considered unemployment? How does that make them employment?" I thought that was a little strange, but that's the way it is. But that aspect of it has been going on, like I say, since I was in the Stone Age. They do not count it, no. But they do periodically revise the statistics. Right. So they'll say we had a great month last month, and then in mid-month they'll say, well, it wasn't that
right, exactly.
But that may be some of it. And, everybody wants to, how much of it is to blame Biden? Well, he did have that, what was his last, the CARES Act or something.
Okay, yeah.
That was just more of Trump.
Well, it was. He admitted that nothing significant is going to change, and pretty much it hasn't.
Yeah, well, he's admitted that now.
Economic policy.
He's admitted that now. He did before the election. I'm going to save the world. But that's plus ça change, plus le même chose.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking on this vein, I don't know if you saw this, but I was reading something online a couple days ago, and I'm drawing a total blank on the name of the website, but I look at it regularly, where they were talking about how the most recent statistics came out from late 2019, because they do 2-year delays,
right.
of how much money is going to the Wall Street banks. And it's still, the bailout is still going on. It comes up in different, they name it different things. But the Fed Reserve, which is basically controlled by the Wall Street banks, has given them like $11 trillion.
It is
just in like a year and a half.
It's
some ridiculously corrupt figure.
It is not only controlled by those banks.
Oh yeah, it's owned by them.
It's owned by
Absolutely.
them. And I don't know. It might have been naked.
Naked capitalism.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was one of the. I read them too all the time, but it wasn't them. It was
Wall Street on parade.
That's it.
Great minds travel in the same. But yeah, the Redditors. I don't know if you know who the Redditors are. I don't read Reddit, so I'm out of that loop. But they're the ones who I guess were the Wall Street Redditors invested in what was that, GameStop and stuff like that. They found out, and they're what?
Yeah.
They own the pet. Oh, this has been going on.
It's been going on for decades. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean,
So
why wouldn't the federal agency that oversees the banks be owned by the same people that own the federal, like government?
So this is a group.
It's not a surprise, unfortunately.
You've got an entity that is owned by another group that actually can throw money at you.
Yep.
What's not to like?
What a great deal.
What's not to love? Okay,
especially
so
when you're throwing somebody else's money at you, like all of the taxpayers'
we are
money.
starting tomorrow. We will file the papers to start the Charlton International Bank, and we are investing in the Federal Reserve.
Right. Okay.
We'll have to invest in the Boston Federal Reserve, but you go with what brung you.
Right.
It's going to be good. We're going to do well. So, is there anything else? Do you think things? Do you think? How do you feel? Do you feel more confident with the situation in the Ukraine this month as you did last month?
Honestly, I don't know where that's going at this point. Following it, and it seems like every day somebody does something stupid over there. And with our government, you've got, and we were talking about this before you turned the mics on, and we were talking about, Tony Blinken hasn't run into a situation that where he doesn't want to start fires, I think. And as you pointed out earlier, it's because he doesn't have any skin in the game. Most of these people don't. Either they're too old to have skin in the game, or they never bothered to participate, or they just don't care. They're sociopathic, most of them. And so over there, we've got the situation where we've got a government that is easily one of the most corrupt on the planet. They don't know what they're doing. They haven't known what they were doing since 1991.
The Ukrainian government.
The Ukrainian government.
That is, that's why thank God we took the nukes away from them.
They actually had the sanity to give them up before they got too bad.
Well, I'm guessing there were a few bribes thrown in there.
They probably were.
What's the coin they call? I don't think they call it rubles or Rona or something.
Their currency?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure they didn't take that currency. I'm sure they took
I think
dollars.
it's the hryvnia or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I wouldn't invest in that currency myself. That's just me. I could be misreading this completely.
Right. But it doesn't help when we have people in our government. What was that guy named? It was a Republican from Alabama, who was talking. I think it was Alabama, who was talking about that we ought to have our naval deployment in the Black Sea ready to basically blow apart the Russians from the sea. I mean, are they stupid? First of all,
yes,
the Black Sea,
short answer, yes.
Yes. I mean, the Black Sea is basically a Russian lake.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that does anything dumb on the Black Sea ends up on the bottom of the Black Sea.
Yeah. I mean, well, that was the year when it started out, the Georgians invaded South Ossetia, but we say, well, when Russia invaded us, Georgia. No, Come on, it was the Russian, the
Yeah.
Georgians. At our behest, we armed them. And
And we provoked them, and we said,
Yeah.
"Well, we'll let you into NATO."
Now-
Oh well, no, we won't, because
Yes.
we're not that stupid.
guess what kind of ships we put in to the Black Sea?
At the time,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Coast Guard ships.
Oh, okay.
Because we could say at least they're operating off of Georgia, nowhere near Savannah, of course. I mean, this is not sane, but then again, what is?
Well, we send a destroyer into the Black Sea every couple of weeks.
Yeah,
And
I mean-
they spin around and they look at you and they I swear that they require their troops to get up there and flash the Russians or something.
What? That
play
does
play
not-
stupid children's games, and then they go home again.
That is not sane.
It's not
in the
sane at
sense of
all.
the word. The smart. Let's face it. They like to talk about Putin. He's the smartest guy there. He is the smartest. I think I don't. If I'm repeating myself, folks, I apologize. But de Tocqueville said about American government officials, they don't think about taking care of the public purse until they've screwed up their own.
Pretty much.
The smartest people are not in government in the United States. Second rate, as he basically said, because of that. I hope nobody disputes that Warren Buffett, whether you like him or not, is smarter than anybody in American government.
Probably.
Steve Jobs was smarter than anybody in American government. That's why he went into computers and not into the California Assembly. People in American government are not that bright. Now, in the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, the smart people went into the KGB because
True.
that was where the smart people went. They couldn't start Apple Computer. They couldn't start the fund, what was Berkshire Hathaway. They went into the KGB. So this guy, Vladimir Putin, is sharper than Bush,
Yeah.
Obama,
Ironically, Bush was CIA.
Trump or Biden.
The parallel, but
So he is keeping things going for Russia. And we could leave. We could say goodbye. We don't have to be there.
no, we don't. And I think it would make sense to. I mean, the why. I've never understood, except for from the profit motive stance, how anybody benefits by continuously poking the bear, or for that matter, the dragon in China. Because we don't have any vested interests in stoking conflicts with either of them.
No.
They're suicidal. We have a vested interest in. We don't necessarily have to like them
No.
or their policies, but
No.
we do have to respect them and their interests and sit down and actually cooperate with them to keep the world on an even keel.
Well, we don't even have to cooperate that much. We just have to leave. We just don't have to bug China about
We shouldn't
Taiwan.
be bugging them at all. We should, but I think we do have to cooperate in a whole slew of different things. I mean,
Well,
we've got issues that affect everybody on the planet. Between climate issues and some of the stupid stuff that goes on in other countries.
Well,
I mean, if we were cooperating with, say, the Russians, we would have been out of Syria years ago. Of course, we're not technically in Syria either, but we
no,
are.
actually,
Everybody
that's
knows
when
it.
we are. We had the
we're
troops
there.
right in there.
Oh, I know you.
We can't say it's technically. We can say
We're not supposed to be there,
we're
but
not.
we are.
But we are. That's
We are.
in reality.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But that we could, if we left the Middle East, we don't have to cooperate Russia there. I get what you mean by cooperation.
Yeah.
The fellow William S. Lind, who runs, writes about this, he said what we should do is cooperate with centers of order.
Centers of order?
Centers of order.
Okay.
The Russian state, if it's a center of order, if it's not making trouble in the world, we exchange diplomatic, and we agree that we won't pollute here or there or stuff like that. We agree with them on things.
Yeah.
Same with China. We don't have to like China. We don't have to say it's perfect. We don't have to say it's nice to all of its citizens as perfectly.
And it's not. And we're not nice to all of our citizens either.
And
we know they're not. Nobody is.
As to things about the Uyghurs, I dispute most of what the American government says about that. But we just have to, as their centers of order, get along with them. Mm-hmm. So we can leave these places, and we can just call them up and say, hey, maybe we should agree we don't pollute this place. Mm-hmm. Get along. That's what getting along with centers of orders would be.
Yeah.
And that means we don't have to have an army in Europe. We don't, either of our two armies.
Yeah.
We don't have to have armies in the Middle East.
Never mind the 400 or 700 or 800 bases that we have all over the world.
We don't need to have them.
We should need most of them. Yeah.
And we don't have to worry if they're polluting if we don't have them over there.
Right.
So that is where we would start, as far as I'm concerned.
I guess the question there is then, at what point would a state, any country, cease being a center of order? And at what point I guess what the one point is, where do you stand up and say, okay, you are sending forces into, let's say, Mali. The French have been in Mali for decades now. And I think the Russians just went in there too.
They were mercenaries, technically.
Yeah. And we're sending mercenaries all over the place too.
Yeah. Our other army.
Yeah. And so at what point does that become a center of chaos? And if that's the case, how do you cooperate with centers of order to end the centers of chaos? Because right now, our foreign policy is essentially a center of chaos at this point.
I wrote the book on the subject. Anyway, so that is a good question. That is actually the question. Would you call North Korea a center of chaos?
Honestly, they're really not. I don't see them as a threat. They posture a lot, but I think they mostly only posture because we keep threatening them.
Okay, I have heard things that they have what the Chinese call the social credit scores. Mm-hmm. So like they do, someone may be say like a number 5, and they are kind of oppressed. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's not a fun place to live. I wouldn't want to live there.
Would we consider them a center of chaos? Would we consider? I think we should. I think we should exchange ambassadors with North Korea.
I think we should too. I think we should exchange ambassadors with Iran.
That doesn't mean... absolutely.
We should be working with Iran in all kinds of things. We don't have to like their government system, but it's not our government.
Working with them, I'm not sure we should necessarily work in a lot of places with them. I think we should, because I think we should leave the Middle East. We don't have to work with them on too much. There might be some centers of agreement where would be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I would personally, given what I understand of the way they do things, I think they're a more reliable. If we get our ducks in a row and pay attention and do the right thing, I think they're a far more reliable and maybe loosely speaking democratic regime than anything the Saudis have ever thought of doing. We should be than the Saudis.
Who is?
The Saudis, Saudi Arabia. We shouldn't be dealing with the Saudis at all.
That's so hypocritical on our part.
I mean,
and not only we are arming, and they're pursuing this genocidal policy.
Oh yeah.
But that I mean,
and if they're not pursuing a genocidal policy in Yemen, they're sending off the Wahhabi ideology to all of these other countries that are creating problems for everyone else.
Yeah.
We don't want them. They need to go. They're not our friends.
No.
They never have been.
It's all based on oil. Uh-huh. Now, if we left the Middle East, I think there's a good possibility the Saudi regime wouldn't last too long.
They probably wouldn't.
But I'm okay with buying their oil. I would, I'd rather not ever deal with them. But I don't want to have to approve them. But oil is fungible. It's going to be sold.
That's true.
And if we are buying oil out in foreign areas, we will buy their oil. It's just we might not buy it from them. And somebody else will have sold it to somebody else. 'Cause it's fungible. It'll be on the market.
That's probably true. I mean, I think from what I've read, they tend to, most of the oil gets bought by the Europeans, I think.
Probably. Probably.
I mean, but then again, if you think about it, there's no, from a truly energy point of view, there's no difference between their oil and the Iranians' oil and the Russians' oil and the Venezuelan oil.
Yeah.
We just make excuses for them,
Well,
and we cast aspersions at the other two.
Venezuela is one of the most horrible hypocrisies.
You mean our policy toward them?
Yes.
Absolutely.
It is an absolutely vile hypocrisy. Because we don't care about, I mean, we tried to foster a coup to get rid of the predecessor of the current president.
Mm-hmm. And it failed.
So, yeah, it failed.
And we still pretend that guy, what's his name?
Guaido.
Yeah, him. Yeah. Yeah. Like we pretend he's president. He's not president of anything.
No.
He's not even the president of a bad think tank.
My argument against think tanks is I don't have a lush sinecure from one of them.
Right.
I mean, if they were paying me $200,000 a year, I'd love to go and have a three martini lunch. But they don't. And that's a travesty right there. The other travesty is, which I think is absolutely horrible, is what is happening to Julian Assange.
Agreed.
And it's, the biggest reason is because he showed a video of a very vile war crime.
Mm-hmm. And he was right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, and what's really sick about it and hypocritical is how many major mainstream journalists refuse to acknowledge that what he did was journalism and that they're not willing to do it.
Are you saying that NPR is not standing up for right and justice in this?
National Propaganda Radio? Of course not.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
I mean,
neither of the Times, neither is the Washington Post.
Fox isn't either.
No,
I mean, so you want right, left, nobody.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Nobody. I mean, you've got the outre people like Glenn Greenwald. You got the libertarians like Scott Horton. You got the Gray Zone. They're standing up like they're ever going to get any respect.
Unfortunately, no, they won't. It comes out, and of course it comes out of money.
Yep.
Because, all of them and Assange and Snowden and people like Manning and other people shook people's apple carts.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable to the military-industrial complex. Can't allow that to happen, even if it's true. They don't care about true.
No.
They just care about dollars.
Of course. It's sad. But it's reality. I
shouldn't
just reviewed, and if you want a book about some of the little dicey origins of the U.S. Constitution, a book about Shays' Rebellion, called Shays' Rebellion, The Last Battle of the American Revolution.
Okay.
And
I don't know much about it, but I do know
it's
about it.
a book worth reading in that without Shays' Rebellion, we might not have got the Constitution.
Okay.
Because the Massachusetts mercantile establishment used it to scare Washington to go to the Constitutional Convention. He had taken an oath of retirement and said, I'm not going back into public life. And he felt he didn't want to, but then General Knox said, hey, these wild people out in Western Massachusetts, they're just a bunch of debtors, and they want to just get free of their debts and free money.
We should do that.
What?
We should do that. We should be doing debt holidays every so often. It will break the back of the criminal banks.
But dealing with that, it wasn't about that.
No.
He was lying. Knox was lying. There were some people who had debts and everything like that, but it was a very different thing than what Knox was saying. It was actually the cream of the towns that were participated in Shays' Rebellion. It wasn't the down and outers. And so things are not, it didn't just happen back then. And I'm not going to scream bloody murder about Washington.
Yeah.
But he was part of his class, and he did not want the plebs running things.
Neither did Jefferson, neither did Madison.
No. Well, Jefferson was more democratic than.
So, I mean, he was also a slave owner,
And he recognized the hypocrisy of that, and he didn't shrink from saying, "Hey, we've got a situation that we can't let go." But he admitted the wrong. But he, what do you do? It's it's like you said, we're holding on. We can't let go. If we let go, we ruined. If we hold on, we're ruined. And it was the truth. It leads to a lot of speculation. William Lloyd Garrison and I can't remember the Southerner, they both said slavery was dead outside of the Union. That if the South seceded successfully, slavery was over because this fugitive slave law was gone.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the slaves just know they have to get over the border, and if secession without war had happened, maybe Virginia would not have seceded, which meant Virginia would have given up slavery voluntarily pretty quickly.
Probably.
And that meant you just get to Virginia. You don't have to get to Pennsylvania. You don't have to. You just have to get to Virginia. So without the Constitution, and with the 3/5 of compromise,
Right.
We probably would have had an end of the Union of the Articles, and that the South would have said, "Okay, we're not sticking around."
Maybe that wouldn't have been a bad thing, given the way the imperialism of our system has developed.
Well, yeah.
Because you can't have world-spanning empires if you get a bunch of small states.
Well, they all, the South and the North. Actually, the North probably was a little better in this, like the War of 1812.
Yeah.
That was an imperialist war.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Southerners and some Northerners, mostly Westerners, like Henry Clay was a Westerner, wasn't a Northerner, coalescing. They thought they were going to get Canada. They really didn't. The impressment of seamen and freedom of that wasn't the big thing.
It's all about
It was we can get Canada, and they thought they were going to get free land.
Well, that's what they ended up doing. They just went west instead.
Yeah.
They took out all the Indian tribes.
Well, they were planning on that anyway. They knew that they knew they had to have a union to move west efficiently or inefficiently, but progressively move west. How much do we really? It'd be nice to have an Indiana that was its own country, kind of, but it wasn't going to happen.
Well, I don't know. If you think about that concept, I think you saw you read Joel Garreau's 9 Nations of North America, right?
Huh?
9 Nations of North America by Joel.
I've read reviews of it. I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, I read that back in college many years ago, and there's other similar ideas out there talking about how, over the course of time, our country and to some degree Canada have slowly diversified in terms of the cultural attitudes in various parts of the country. It's pretty obvious when you see the differences between, say, Dixie and New England, or the cultural attitudes between, say, New England and Colorado. Or
I would guess for Dixie and New England, 100 years ago, the differences were more stark.
Oh, that's true.
TV has blandified everything.
That's true. In many respects, I think that's true. But I think a lot of that's still surface. Because you think about it, TV's not that old. And the cultural attitudes, I think, are still there.
I am the first generation of TV watchers.
Yeah.
And I've lived in the South, in the Army. And, I've seen American culture. I'd say it's blandified
Well, I'm sure
together.
it has, but
I would say, yeah, the cultural differences are still there. You can see them,
right.
but they are. Everybody watches this show. Everybody knows about TikTok. Everybody knows about Facebook and
sure.
everything.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And the longer that goes on, the blander it will get, more likely than not.
Right.
I mean, you figure even years ago, before the internet became an issue, the common trait of, for example, radio and television was to pick a Midwestern accent because it's bland.
Yeah.
And ironically, I was kind of raised that way, not because of radio, but because my mom's from Minnesota, my dad's from this area, and my mom didn't want me to have a New England accent. So I don't have that much of I don't have like a really blatant Boston accent.
No. No, actually, for us who are born in Boston, the Midwest starts in Leicester. And with that, we're getting late.
Maybe that's why I lived in Leicester.
It's getting late in time here, and I think the powers that be in TV Charlton are wishing we would kind of wrap this up. And I heard something somewhere. I want to thank you very much, Gus, for coming. It was spirited, and we solved the world's problems. If you have any other problems, call Gus. Thank you very much.
Email me anyway.